And we are live. Perfect. Almost a good transition. As good as the one before. I keep on messing up the transitions every now and then. How are you, James? We've got James Glasscock on today's CorpDev.Ninja show. It is Friday, December 4th. I can't believe it. December 4th, 2020, and possibly one of the craziest years ever. So you're going to be one of my final guests to capstone the 2020 years. How are you, James?
Amazing. Thank you for having me. Yeah, it's a good year to build something at the very least.
Yeah, exactly. Well, certainly, I mean, part of the one thing that I ended up doing during this 2020 period was obviously exercising some more of my creative aspects aside from just business or academics. And so the CorpDev.Ninja was one of more of the creative things that's come out, but I've been trialing, testing a bunch of different stuff. How are you today? How are things just in general with you? You're in LA?
That's right. Yeah, I live in Los Angeles. Have been out here for about 20 years now, doing good. You know, this has been an interesting year. I think Los Angeles just went back into lockdown over the last couple of days. So
That's right.
it's limiting our time in nature, but hopefully we'll be able to get back out and for beach walks or hikes or whatever in the near future.
Are you, where are you these days in the city?
I live in Mar Vista.
Mar Vista. Okay. So beach walks, like I used to be in Santa Monica. Now I'm more inside in West Hollywood, Beverly Hills area these days. I miss the beach. Had I known that COVID was coming, I probably would have just stayed where I was right on the beach before.
I will admit, I snuck out there last night for a little after dark walk, and
you can't even go to the beaches. Is the lockdown prohibiting beach access as well right now?
I am not sure. I've seen some news that might suggest that. It didn't look like it last night. It's just great to be in nature, man. Be next to the waves crashing.
My favorite.
We've all had a really challenging year, and it just feels good to have that little connection here and there.
Of course. Well, thank you so much. We've got an exciting show ahead. I've got some great questions I'd love to ask you. You're an impressive entrepreneur, an impressive operator, have an extraordinary background. So we'll get there in a minute. But before we do, let me introduce your bio officially. So James Glasscock is the co-founder of GoodHuman. Alert, I'm also an investor in the company. An immersive mobile app for all things sustainable and ethical. Glasscock has spent much of his career as a leader of media and new product businesses. He's worked at large media giants such as Warner Brothers, Machinima, Turner Broadcasting, and as an analyst for Zone Ventures and KPMG's digital media Incubator. Cryptocurrency, he's also a cryptocurrency investor with a focus on projects that are pioneering new forms of distributed coordination for the future of work, which is a topic I actually love as well, and involved in a few areas in that space. Decorated veteran, having served in the U.S. Navy during Operation Desert Storm, nature and haiku enthusiast. What a background. I love it. And before we get into it, what caught my eye briefly and before we went live was your background as a veteran. Tell me a little bit about Desert Storm and your role as a U.S. Navy officer, and how did that experience translate into the person you are today, and the way you approach business?
Sure. So I grew up in Memphis, Tennessee, and honestly, when I turned 18, I was looking for a way out. I was, had given some thought to the military. My grandfather served in the Navy. My father had served in the U.S. Army, and kind of called up the Air Force, the Army, and the Marines, and ultimately made a choice to go into the U.S. Navy. And so I was an electrician. I worked in engineering plants while I was in the Navy on a guided missile frigate, and spent 5 years on active duty. Had a lot of fun. Most people who join the Navy get to go to a lot of amazing places. Yeah. I unfortunately was not one of them. We mostly went out into the middle of the ocean and did circles most of the time. So that's kind of a bummer because the ocean looks the same from all angles. But it was an incredible time. Lots of the core values of the U.S. Navy are honor, commitment, and courage. Stuck with me from the very beginning.
I love those values.
Yeah, they're really
Honor,
strong.
and courage. Wow.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And then, from day one, attention to detail is really at the essence of everything that all of the U.S. military does. So those things have permeated my career, and, obviously I still remember them to this day.
And how did you, that's impressive. And thank you for your service. I'm sure myself and everyone else listening will also would love to tell you that as well. So how did you pivot? And before we get into GoodHuman and the other stuff, because I'm kind of taking this a little off the cuff, but how did you pivot from military to media?
Sure. I'd say early in my career, I was a little bit of an opportunist. On the heels of my 5 years of active duty in the U.S. Navy, I studied accounting at the University of San Diego. And then coming out of school, my first job was at KPMG, which is a very well-known accounting firm, who also happened to be a very large consulting firm at the same time. This was during the late 90s, the dot-com boom. So there was this opportunity in their digital media incubator, which surely, sounded sexy at the very least.
I'm probably one of the first, because that's when digital media was being incubated, actually. Sort of appropriate.
That's right. Yeah. And it was a wild time, in the late 90s with, companies like Amazon being born and many others. I started in their incubator, and within a year, a venture capital firm here in Los Angeles, actually the largest one, Zone Ventures, brought me in to help launch their incubator and tech accelerator. So spent a few years with them, focused on technology commercialization.
Wow.
And then kind of the pivot into the entertainment industry and media industry was through an offer at Turner Broadcasting in Atlanta. They run CNN and TBS and many other TV networks. That was really the beginning of learning and understanding the television business, which soon became, the video business and online video and so forth.
Right. Oh, wow. It's fascinating. I love that. And so the skills that you've had, obviously being in the military previously, that translated around attention to detail and actually entrepreneurship. Courage is all about entrepreneurship or going into new areas. And so that was probably another reason that enabled you to make that move and be successful. Tell me about, it's interesting. And now let's talk about your current startup, GoodHuman, launching a company during a pandemic. Tell me about GoodHuman and about this process. What unique challenges have you faced relative to some of the previous endeavors as you've had to do this during a pandemic? And I recall when investing in your company in the seed round, there was no mention of anything of a pandemic. So a lot has changed since in the year that you're launching, and a lot of startups have had just a lot of challenges, but a lot of opportunities as well. How has it affected you?
Yeah. So, GoodHuman is this immersive mobile app to discover all things ethical and sustainable. It's we've vetted 650 brands, 50,000 plus products. Consumers were frustrated and overwhelmed with, there's all these great sustainable and ethical brands, but which one should I trust? And is there one place to find them all? So that's what we built. We had that vision about 2 years ago because we noticed a big shift from, some people would say this is a shift from tree huggers 20 years ago to real financial risk for companies going into the next decade. So you're seeing, all kinds of brands and companies figure out how does their mission relate to sustainability and taking care of their community. That's why we built GoodHuman. Now, enter 2020 and a pandemic, obviously incredibly challenging year, but also reinforcing for what we were building. The challenges, of course, is all of us, you, me, everyone who's listening in March and April and May, wondering what is this and how long is this going to last and how's it going to impact our business? Yeah. Our first thought was actually, this is really bad for the business that we're in, because we thought we were entering a recession and that would grossly affect e-commerce opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
Turns out it did exactly the opposite. And we've, as we've seen with the future of work and e-commerce and digital, everything's accelerated at least 5 years, if not 10 years into the future.
Yep.
But psychologically, for any entrepreneur, building a startup is already difficult. Doing it during a pandemic, just makes it even more complex. And so, I've been just sort of taking care of myself and, hopefully my team, for us to stay grounded through this year, recognizing we will get through it. And I think what we've observed, with humanity really is a lot of us have woken up a little bit more in terms of thinking about our impact on the planet. We saw this before Black Lives Matter. Mm-hmm. We saw people really thinking about, do I need these things? Are they essential? What is the impact I'm having on the planet? And then after Black Lives Matter, you saw even more of a awareness, and curiosity from people of all races to really understand the issues that are going on. So this was I think, an incredible year of transformation for me, for our company, and for the planet.
Yeah, no, I can totally see that. And I think people are becoming more aware of the sensitivities, especially from an ecological perspective. I mean, I remember when in the New York Times, when they ran a few photos, and India, for example, when all the cars and everyone had to like in Delhi and other areas, they're like, wow, you can see the sky. Many places around, and I think they did some some maps, like some satellite imagery as well around carbon emissions, and it just shows that many places in the world where there is low quality of air, all that CO2, because everyone is kind of industries are kind of on a pause, cars that emit emissions and other aspects, people are like, wow, this is actually much better to live in an environment that's healthy and nice than smoggy and not. Right.
Yeah, that's right. We've been living in a system where we thought, this is how things should be done. Isn't it kind of odd that a lot of us had to get in a car and drive an hour a day each way to work, to go to a central location, and really kind of inefficient getting there and coming back. And then you get there and it's just, you're stacked with meetings all day. Somehow that became the status quo. So yeah, it's fascinating to see things like that disrupted, whether it's how we work or even how we consume. Sometimes we just get in these habits and we stop asking ourselves, is this really the right way to do things? So I think this year has been a wake-up call. Yeah,
absolutely. Now, next question, and we got into it a little bit at the intro when I introduced GoodHuman, but I'll ask it again and perhaps in a different way. What inspired you to launch GoodHuman, and tell me the journey that led you to this moment?
Sure. So my co-founder and I, we had already known each other for about a decade, but we came together in 2018 around a shared observation, which, anyone who started to question or be curious about sustainable products from ethical brands and what does that mean, you quickly find yourself in an overwhelming rabbit hole. You don't know which companies to trust. There's an incredible amount of greenwashing out there. And, the thing is,
you said greenwashing?
Greenwashing.
Can you explain that term?
Yeah, greenwashing is just a reference to using buzzwords in your marketing to make a product seem healthy or seem clean or positively impacting the planet. For example, anytime you see the word natural on any product,
oh yes,
natural is not a regulated term. You'll even see in some products, if you look at the ingredients, they'll say natural ingredients or natural flavors. It's actually, that's not a healthy ingredient for any type of product that you're consuming. I'm not saying all products that have that are bad, but you should question it. So
it's like a blanket generic statement in order to not expose to the user or consumer what it actually is, right? Because if it were good, you would just list it out.
That's right.
Yeah,
and look, even the word sustainability is used in a lot of greenwashing. A lot of people don't even know what it means. And so you really got to get specific around what we're talking about. And then we can start questioning, well, wait a minute, sustain, that is just getting along. That's just living, barely. We're sustaining. How do we regenerate? So there's a lot of work to do around this. And we realized, well, if we're overwhelmed and other people are overwhelmed, then, and the other piece of this is we're all humans. So we like convenience. Convenience is kind of like a high priority for most people because you and me and others, we have family, we have work, we have finances, we have our health. We got to take care of those things. Yeah. And of course, we're all good humans and we want to take care of the planet. But it's like, hey, I want to get a raise next year or next month. I want to get this gift and take care of my mother or my girlfriend or something like that. Yeah. So what we realized pretty quickly is for what we were building is, we want everyone to care about sustainability and ethics and conscious consumption. But the truth of the matter is people care about convenience. So for us, we just wanted to figure out how could we make being a good human as convenient as being a bad human, and that's what we built.
Love that. I love that. And so when thinking about that kind of mission, that's a big reason why I invested in the company as well, because for me that resonates. And on behalf of our venture fund, West Quad Ventures, it's like this is the sort of kind of inspirational and like key kind of things that we want to be a part of. As you think about lowering the friction or pain to make things more convenient to be a quote unquote good human, how is that like, how are you pairing, let's say, the brands and merchandisers on one end of supply to meet the demand that your users like? How are you balancing both sides of the marketplace equation? Because of course there are brands that exhibit those qualities, and of course there are consumers and users who want those sort of brands or products. But maybe what's the messaging that, from a corporate development perspective, is what's most captivating to the brands that you're onboarding? I guess that's the real question I have.
Sure. Well, I think the brands are always looking for new ways to connect with everyone, really. And if if you get included in a place like Amazon, you run risks such as Amazon competing directly with your brand, in some cases making products just like you make, possibly using your data, allegedly using your data against you. I believe that's an active legal case. But you might have seen this year, there's a big shoe brand called Allbirds. You can find them on GoodHuman. You cannot find Allbirds on Amazon. And the reason why is because Amazon knocked off the product.
I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. So what the brands care about is they care about authentically connecting to people who care about this. They don't want to be treated as a commodity, and they shouldn't be treated as a commodity. The 650 brands that we've curated, these companies, these entrepreneurs and founders, they're all on a mission. Mm-hmm. They're not the big companies you've heard of, like Zara and H&M and stuff like that. These are founders who decided to do it completely differently, and sustainability and ethics are at the root of their culture. Yeah. I call them native ethical brands. They're not just bolting on a kind of a greenwash messaging. It's like part of the core culture of the company. So that's how we're sort of connecting with the brands. For users, though, one of the things we really wrestled with early on is this idea of sustainable products from ethical brands. Sometimes they cost more money, and they're less accessible to everyone. So we wanted to build a place that wasn't just a place to buy things, but as a place of discovery, for information, for DIY tips, and really for connecting with other good humans on the same mission. So, when you use the GoodHuman app, you'll quickly see in there's a lot to do other than just look at products and buy products, because that's also kind of part of the problem with
community.
With consumers.
So there's a whole community aspect to the app and service. And
that's right.
Experience. That's right. Yep. What's the best corp dev advice you can give to somebody regarding the e-commerce or media space? just because of your background. I'm like, how, and I know there's different, in your industry in particular, and I know that's a completely generic question, but, I'd like to see how you answer it in your own way and how you think about it.
Sure. It's, it's such a different world for what is, our seed stage company, GoodHuman. We are at the stage of maybe where Amazon was in 1995 or 96. I can't remember exactly when they started. Versus my time at big media companies like Warner Brothers and Turner Broadcasting and even KPMG, which was a long time ago for me. My core dev, experiences at those big media companies, a lot of times we're often looking at, strategy and a lot of M&A activity. Whereas, my time here with GoodHuman is really focused around product market fit and traction and listening directly to the users. And so the experiences are completely different in a lot of ways. I got to say, I really enjoy the small startup aspect of this because we move faster in a week than most companies move in 6 months. It's been funny. I was having this conversation with some friends last night about investors and advisors and consultants and things like that. A month passes in a company our size, you're left way behind in terms of the information flow of what's happening and what's working with the users, because you're making steering changes nearly every single day of the week. And usually by the end of the week, we might have a pretty significant change in understanding based on data that we're seeing directly from the user. So from a corp dev standpoint, I'd say it's shifted a little bit more to product development and product traction. There will be corp dev opportunities around partnerships and things like that in the near future. But that's where we are.
Great. And you have an interesting background in crypto. Can you just briefly describe kind of your previous experience in the crypto space? And just out of curiosity, because there's been a bit of a rally, or a lot of a rally recently in crypto, and just so not necessarily related to GoodHuman, but curious to hear your thoughts on the future of crypto.
Well, the future of crypto is very bright. It's bigger than what the internet was or even understood to be in the 90s. And it's bigger than even how we understand the internet now. I got involved, I bought my first Bitcoin in 2013. A close friend is a very influential person in the crypto space and digital money. And I knew I wanted to learn it, and I didn't understand it at all. And a lot of times, one of the best ways to learn is just to put your chips on the table. Right. I bought it actually at the peak in 2013. I bought it at $2,000, I believe was the price. It might, or maybe it was $1,000. Yeah, it was about $1,000, like $1,200.
Because I did my first crypto, I think was also in 2013. I think, it was around like summer, I think maybe around $1,000.
Yeah. Well, I bought it for $1,200 and 6 months later it was at $200. One of the big exchanges collapsed and I was like,
MG Gox, right?
That's right. That's the one. So I was like, well, this is not so good. But, I kept kind of going and I decided to keep buying even through that sort of bear market and learning. And then I bought some Ethereum, maybe a few years later. But in 2016, 2017, I started getting more active. I knew, this is a time when I was at Warner Brothers. I actually wanted to really get more involved in crypto projects. And so I started working with some folks to help accelerate other crypto ventures. And through that is how I learned a lot more and sort of gained my own perspective around what I believe the opportunities are. And so with crypto and blockchain, I divided into sort of two parts. One is around currency and the future of money, and the other is coordination and the future of work. The area that I'm specifically passionate about is coordination and the future of work. A lot of folks get involved in the money piece of it because, there's a lot of speculation and sometimes these things go up, 3x in a day kind of thing. That's all fine. And there'll be a ton of people and Wall Street will love that. For me, though, like, for example, one of the projects I've invested in is a company called Brain Trust. They're building a better version of Upwork. They're building a better version of Fiverr. And they're building a better version of to replace digital agencies and serve Fortune 500 companies.
Yeah.
Their community is growing very fast, and their community will own the company. That's exciting when you think about the future of ownership, moving from a few highly, very wealthy stakeholders to, shareholders actually, to a much more distributed ownership by the entire community. And as we've all sort of witnessed over the last 18 months, companies like Uber and Airbnb and Lyft, we're all looking at ways of how do I give ownership to the people who've helped build this community. Right. There's a lot of legal reasons why that's not easy to do currently, but that is the future of building organizations, is how do you give community ownership? And that's a huge opportunity for crypto.
Amazing. I love that outlook, and I'm similar to your camp about the outlook. There's still a tremendous area of growth opportunity, and it's still not well understood, and tons of speculation. So there's all this different sort of personas involved in this ecosystem that one can define.
That's right. There's a lot of quote experts. The best advice I've ever received and given is, obviously don't put anything in that you can't afford to lose. But, if you can sit on, as you start to dabble, if you want to actually own some crypto, if you can plan to sit on it for 5 years, you'll probably be fine. There are these wild swings where the market is way up or way down, but it usually goes in like a 3 or 4 year cycle. So if you're investing on a 5 to 10 year timeline, you're going to be very happy. I got some Bitcoin for my godson. I think it's going to put him through college. If college is a thing, who
knows whether there's a thing in the future.
That's right.
So last question. I know we're at the tail end of our show, and you're a busy man, so I don't want to keep you much longer. So what's in store for the future of GoodHuman? What's the next 6 to 12 month outlook look like?
Yeah, 2021, we're really just looking toward, looking at a lot of the paradigm shifts that are happening with media and commerce and community. Some big things have been happening this year that have piqued our interest. And we're just thinking about how do we build a better user experience for our community, and how do we grow that community authentically. We got a lot of people currently using GoodHuman that actually work in the sustainability industry. In our private beta, over half the users had sustainability or ESG in their job titles on LinkedIn. We really wanted to seed with kind of some of the world's experts, because at the very least, we knew they would help hold us accountable for the vision that we're building. So it's just going to be, keeping our heads down, keep building the company, keep listening to the community and making it better.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Shane.
Maybe a little fundraising at some point too.
We'll do some fundraising. And that will be next year. And of course, I will help you with that and participate in that as well. So we've got James Glasscock. Thank you so much for making the time today, and sharing your words of wisdom across all things corp devs, startups, crypto, and even the military, which I wasn't expecting that we would get into to start, which was quite fascinating. Impressive background, and stay safe out there. And hope we can connect in person when everyone's vaccinated soon enough.
Yeah, man. Thank you, Andreas.
Thank you.